I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Movie Star Magic. And this week, we're going to be looking at the career of Nicole Kidman, a fascinating public persona, maybe first, and then we start to realize her great talent as a movie star, and now eventually see her as this great, legendary, stately presence in Hollywood. She has a fascinating career, and one I definitely wanted to break down, so I hope you enjoyed the video. But if you're new to the series, what I do every single week is pick an actor, break down their career, and try to define what their movie star magic is. The first sort of 2/3 of the video are me going through their career, breaking up the actor's career into 3 different chapters, seeing how they evolve as an actor and how their career trajectory sort of went. I also talk about a movie in each of those 3 chapters just to help you understand where they were at their period, and some of the things and aspects I like about their movies and appreciate about their performances. And then in the last third of the video, I try to understand their defining feature. What is their movie star magic? What is that one thing that they have that allowed them to become a movie star that other people don't have, that they've been able to sort of tap into and harness and utilize such great success? But if you guys liked the video, please comment below your thoughts, like the video, subscribe to the channel, all that stuff definitely helps out. So please, if you can, that'll be greatly appreciated. But without further ado, jumping into chapter 1 of Nicole Kidman's career, I'm calling this chapter the Tom phase. Because even though it's maybe reductive in certain respects, I think to understand Nicole Kidman's career, particularly in the sort of 90s, in this early period, a lot of her relationship in her public persona influenced sort of her professional choices. That when we're talking about movie stars, oftentimes there is a sort of meta element to it. Because Tom Cruise was already this huge, massive, established star, and Nicole Kidman being married to him in late 1990 until 2001, this sort of decade of marriage, there is sort of a direct correlation between her sort of personal life and her glamour and her showing up to the Hollywood parties with Tom Cruise, being this kind of Hollywood royalty type. There is sort of a celebrity power couple element to that. And, she had her great start sort of doing Australian cinema and had her real first sort of breakout movie in '89 with Dead Calm. But, Tom Cruise does his first movie with her in 1990. They get married based off that movie. And then they do 3 films throughout the decade with that. And I think a lot of people's perception of Nicole early on, with some sort of critical divide of a movie like Dazed and Confused and Far and Away, there was a little bit of a concern over, is she a really good actress, or is she just Tom Cruise's wife? Is she really a big movie star, or is she just sort of being positioned in this way? There wasn't, especially if you haven't seen a movie like Dead Calm, that was kind of maybe the public persona of her at the time. But it wasn't until To Die For in the mid-90s there, where she sort of announced herself as a really great actress and wowed a lot of people. And then started to get a little bit more bigger roles. The Peacemaker, of course, works with Stanley Kubrick and Tom again in Eyes Wide Shut. So she does get, sort of her own, starting to begin a movie career. Of course, gets Batman Forever, which is, a pivotal role, but even though that movie is still not super well received. So she's being, celebrated by, well-respected directors like a Gus Van Sant, like a Stanley Kubrick. But maybe the sort of choices she's making aren't always the best. So there is a little bit of debate in this sort of 90s period. How good of an actor is she really? Is she really this sort of exciting young actor that we think she is? And her sort of track record is a little bit spotty. But really in this 90s period, she does many incredible movies, but in terms of the sort of performance that I think is defining this chapter, the defining role of this chapter, it has to go with To Die For, which I was really blown away for, particularly because I think she's really the anchor of the film. If this was done with Meg Ryan as initially sort of thought, I don't think it works as much. And what she brings to the film is this real sense of mystery and intrigue. But because the movie is sort of reliant on this kind of sort of typical true crime-esque story, the real interest in the movie is how it's sort of told through the sort of narration, video style, documentary, faux documentary-esque narrative structure. And that, of course, helps a lot in terms of its telling of the story. But I also think is important is how Nicole's able to really add to the suspense of the film through her performance. And that's just because we have this sort of young, ambitious, wannabe news reporter, and this woman that's really willing to do whatever it takes to become famous, even if that means, some more darker sides of her personality comes out. And when I say Nicole adds to the suspense of the movie along with the narrative sort of conceit of the film, it's because you don't really know exactly what her character's motivations are. You question if she's sort of a sociopath. I think so, but in one scene you think, oh, she really does care for this person, and the next scene you question that. You wonder if that's all just a facade that she's putting up. She also sort of plays her with a great deal of empathy in the sense that she's not maybe the brightest person, but has this drive, has this passion. But just because her ability to sort of change different things and change the tone and her line readings and how she approaches characters, even between scene to scene, it creates a sense of mystery. It creates a sense of intrigue and wanting to figure out who this character is, why is she acting like this, and this sort of stilted, stiff, cold almost a way of portraying this character was a fascinating choice by Kidman, and one that totally adds to the success of the film. So if you haven't checked To Die For, it's a really great mid-90s thriller there. Then chapter 2, I'm titling this one The Awards Run, because this is where she really gets her big success and becomes the capital M movie star, A-list movie star. And that's really sort of ironically kind of post Tom Cruise. She's divorced from him, she's not sort of seen as sort of connected to her anymore, and it's kind of like maybe a sink or swim moment for the American public audience. Is she really this great actress, or is she only in these good movies with Tom Cruise? But she proved everyone wrong, and her star, shot through the roof post sort of 2000s, the 21st century, because you have 2001 Moulin Rouge. The movie gets nominated for 8 Oscars. She gets nominated for Best Picture, so it's a huge deal, huge hit as well. The same year she has The Others, which is a great little thriller as well, that is a huge success as well, even bigger than Moulin Rouge, less so in terms of Best Picture, but in terms of box office, really big. And then the next year stars in The Hours, which gets her first Oscar win. The movie is also nominated for Best Picture, so she has a couple back-to-back Best Picture nominees in a row, and then wins for the second one for Best Lead Actress. So that's a big deal. That she's not a supporting win, that's actually a big lead win. And then the year after that, she does Cold Mountain, in which that movie gets a bunch of Oscar nominations as well, not Best Picture, and she doesn't get nominated, but Renee Zellweger does win, so there is a connection there where she has this sort of 3-year run of being this sort of kind of Oscar darling, showing up to the awards ceremony every single year, and certain actors have this every once and again, and she was definitely in this sort of great period where it's like she's having box office successes, she's having sort of really defining films like a Moulin Rouge or like and others, and they're really being very successful and they're doing very well. And then from then on, she starts being a capital M movie star, A-lister, in which she's requesting 15 million plus for her movies. Every one of her movies that she's doing, like a Stepford Wives, like The Interpreter, like Bewitched later on, or even Australia. These are like $90 million movies. It's kind of insane to think Bewitched, that's a $90 million movie, or Stepford Wives, but these are sort of big movie star driven A-list Nicole Kidman vehicles that she was able to sort of really produce and create because of her sort of A-list star talent. And there's this little period there where she starts working with auteurs and tries to follow up some of her Oscar success with like a Birth or a Dogville, but for the most part, really, aside from that, she starts to work on mainstream movies in which she is the main movie star, and it becomes a little bit less successful. Sometimes like a movie like The Interpreter will make some money, but Cold Mountain wasn't a huge success. Neither was Australia. Neither was Stepford Wives, which was a bit of a bomb. And these movies aren't getting her the Oscars. They're not getting critically acclaimed. I do think it's telling that she gets nominated in 2001 for Moulin Rouge and then doesn't get nominated again until 2010's The Rabbit Hole. And personally, in my opinion, this sort of chapter, where after the awards run, she is the sort of capital leading woman movie star. But from about 2004 until 2016, 2015, it's this sort of, period where she's not doing as much. She has a couple kids. She's married to Keith Urban. And of course, she's dealing with that, raising her children, of course. But some of the sort of choices that she made and the taste that she had, where she was really in the zeitgeist in this early 2000s, Eyes Wide Shut, Moulin Rouge, Others, The Hours kind of a period. She sort of loses a little bit of that cultural touch, but I think sort of comes back in that sort of 2016 period, but that's the next chapter. Talking about this chapter here, I wanted to go with a different type of a movie, but one of my favorite movies, maybe my favorite movie that she's done, no, definitely not my favorite, but maybe top three, and that is Birth, which I do think is a very underrated movie from Jonathan Glazer. And it is in this interesting period where it's post-Oscar success, but pre her sort of being a big capital A-list movie star, in which she just like gives herself over to Lars von Trier in this 3-hour kind of art house movie. In the same way, Birth, it's such a strange, odd movie. It would never have gotten nominated for any awards or even had that much box office success because it's so strange and cold and distant. It does feel sort of Kubrickian in the way Jonathan Glazer is so confident in his sort of cool and controlled and heavy and slow kind of camera work that he gives to the movie. And Glazer is a large reason for the success of the movie. But I think Kidman is great is totally giving herself over to this kind of absurd premise in which a woman who is about to marry her second husband 10 years after the death of her first one meets this 10-year-old boy claiming to be the reincarnation of her first husband. And it's kind of this insane thing. But the way Kidman totally approaches it and never treats it as silly and does sort of treat it as a serious kind of threat in many ways to her life and the future and what she sort of is able to understand. The way she gives it a very realistic portrayal as well, in the sense that, you know, she goes from utter disbelief to intrigue to sort of total belief and total sort of commitment to it. It's an odd movie just in its conceit, but Kidman does so much to actually, I think, ground the film and make it sort of realistic in the sense that how would you do this? How would you actually react? And her sort of arc from going sort of playful and in disbelief at the beginning to the eventual intrigue and then sort of this desire in the second half that she has, which is sort of this weird kind of a balance that she has and just the allure that she brings to the movie of her sunken eyes and her intense devotion to the material. It's a movie that maybe not a lot of people have seen, but definitely one that they should, and Nicole is terrific in it. And then my third chapter here, I'm going to call this one The Stately Presence, just because when we're talking about sort of that lump period of 2004 to 2015, that 10-year period, she does some interesting movies, but they're not always super successful. But then when 2016's Lion comes out, I think that's sort of was seen as a comeback for her. It's like, oh, Nicole, she's really great in this. Let's give her an Oscar nomination. Gets nominated for that. And then, you know, a couple of years later, gets nominated for Being the Ricardos a few years later. So, you know, she has this sort of the Margot at the Weddings or the Rabbit Holes, but they're not sort of culturally defining movies in the same way. Really, since, I say, 2016 onwards, she's really had a lot of success and sort of reinvigorated her career, and in part because of her TV career. Because 2016 Lion, she gets a supporting actor nomination, but if it's not for 2017's Big Little Lies, I don't know if she has the same success she does. I don't know if she gets Destroyer. I don't think she stars in Bombshell, for example. That her movie career has a direct tie to her success in TV and the sort of prestige that she brought. And you know, 2017 wins an Emmy for Big Little Lies. That show does gangbusters, Golden Globes, winning for drama series, that first season in particular. And it's sort of a scene, at least in my mind, as a real shift in TV versus movies, where it's like, oh, we're bringing Laura Dern, we're bringing Nicole Kidman, Reese Witherspoon, heavy hitters, movie star actors to TV. You know, we had that with Kevin Spacey and Robin Wright. We had that with Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson. But this is like big time movie stars, big time series, HBO, feels kind of like a movie, and that sort of influences her movie career too, like I said. And then she, of course, has her own great TV career, Big Little Lies Season 2, The Undoing, which was a huge success on HBO, which got her a lot of awards consideration. And ultimately, I called this chapter the Stately Presence, because if you want your HBO show to feel more prestigious, throw Nicole Kidman in there. She's a sort of legendary actor that's very well respected, and she's a little bit older now, and she's sort of showing her age, so she's great at that. But even if you want to do a comic book movie and you want to be you want to have a little bit of presence and weightiness and theatricality, I think, to the movie, throw in Nicole Kidman. She brings that. So she can do that in the comic book movies. She can also do that in TV. She's doing a bunch of different mediums and doing them successfully. And I think in this kind of period, it was really important for her to start to do good work again, even if that meant being into different formats. And because, like I said, she does well in something like Big Little Lies, people like Sofia Coppola or Yorgos Lanthimos, like these auteurs, want to come work with her, and like Killing the Sacred Deer, or like The Beguiled, Karen Kusama in Destroyer, Aaron Sorkin being the Ricardos. Like, the people are sort of now coming to her because of the success she's had in this sort of late period. And I do think this will be sort of her last chapter. She is in this sort of wise, older, more respected, mature actor phase versus the sort of capital A-list movie star leading career, but she's doing very well on TV, getting paid very well, and successful in that regard. So in this sort of chapter, she has sort of reestablished herself once again as a sort of dominant American movie star, even though she's Australian, but working in Hollywood. And then in terms of the defining role, this is the first for movie star magic, but I'm going to go with a TV. I'm going to go with season 1 of Big Little Lies. This was a huge deal for her. This was really her defining role of this period. It's like, do I really think Being the Ricardos or Lion, or if you even want to go to Rabbit Hole or Destroyer or The Killing of a Sacred Deer, like, do I really think those movies are going to be the defining role of her period? It's like, well, no, then we're just lying to ourselves. It was TV. It's either The Undoing or it's Big Little Lies season 1. And I went with Big Little Lies ultimately because this was the first time I saw her in an ensemble, really, aside from, say, Dogville, in which she was really great at working off everyone and all the different protagonists and all the different characters throughout the episodes, so that when we have like a complex role like To Die For, in which every scene in that movie is a little bit different, and Nicole takes a little bit different of approach to it to add to the mystery. She does this in a more dramatic sense, in the sense that her relationship with Alexander Skarsgård versus her relationship with Laura Dern or some of the other characters, Reese or Zoe Kravitz or Shailene Woodley, all the different sort of women in the film, how she sort of, throughout the episodes, has these slightly different relationships with different people, and how she acts and reacts and sort of responds to the different sort of energies that those actors bring. It's really interesting. It adds just so much more to the complexity of the character, but also to the sort of showcase of her acting talent. Nicole really sort of exercises and flexes her muscles here and her acting talent because of her ability to sort of be varying and have that sort of variety of performances that she has, that she really isn't able to do in a movie, and she definitely succeeds at that. Now, talking about the defining feature of Nicole Kidman, what is her movie star magic? I titled this video The Deceiving Doll, which may be a weird sort of descriptor to talk about her and as a statement, but the one word that I always thought of when I was thinking about her movies and the characters that she plays is deception. Either she is doing the deception herself, she is the deceiver, or she is the one being deceived. I don't think it's a coincidence that a lot of her most successful movies, whether it be Eyes Wide Shut or The Others, or even her later stuff here with The Undoing, these sort of mystery movies, these sort of intrigue, these sort of thriller type movies, she's very good at, because she's sort of, for some reason or another, I think, attracted to these kind of roles. But I think the reason why she's attracted to these roles, and these are some of her more successful roles, is because she's very great at doing that. To Die For, she deceives her husband and the audience in terms of her actual true motivations. Moulin Rouge, she's deceiving the Duke and actually being in love with Ewan McGregor's character. Practical Magic, she deceives others that she's not a witch, and her aunts that they don't have, a dead zombie guy that they resurrected and then killed again in the backyard. There's always sort of either a proactive response by her or a sort of maybe a submissive response. And the other sort of element to this fact is the doll aspect of her, which is a weird way to describe it, but Nicole Kidman is of stunning beauty, and she's not someone that's stunning and almost relatable, like a sense of a Julia Roberts, but she's often utilized and seen as this kind of pale porcelain doll, and in terms of just her beauty as a sort of perfect, flawless kind of an image of a woman. And I think Nicole is actually able to utilize that in terms of the deception. So either she's To Die For, this beautiful bombshell kind of news anchor, and she's using her good looks to deceive people into getting what she wants, or other filmmakers use that as a sign of innocence and purity, as this Nicole Kidman as this sort of beautiful blonde, pale, blue-eyed symbol of hope in a movie like Dogville, and then seeing that ultimately get destroyed. She's never going to be in this sort of rom-com-esque kind of a movie. She's one of those actors that didn't really sort of fall into that entirely. And when she does try to do it like a Bewitched, it doesn't work. She doesn't have that kind of a gear. she's much better at being kind of a symbol of hope and innocence that is being torn down in a movie like, Dogville, or even like a Moulin Rouge, and then in a movie like Stoker or The Stepford Wives or The Beguiled, she is the manipulator, she is the deceiver. So it's fascinating to see her as an actor have this kind of dual role of being very submissive at times, and can be submissive in terms of the taking over the sort of the film and being sort of completely committed to trying to ultimately tell the overall story and be kind of the lost hope, kind of a symbol in many regards. But she can also be the sort of deceiver. She can also be proactive, so she can be submissive, but she can also be dominant in her kind of roles. And it's a fascinating sort of duality that she's able to do. And I think that's why she is sort of Deception is this word that came into my mind, because so many of her movies are thrillers or mysteries, and we have an actor that can do both, that can portray kind of innocence and purity and be torn down by that, or can be in control of that and use it to sort of have this sort of cynical sort of current of her movies. That's why I think she succeeds so well in the mystery or the thriller genre, and that's what always keeps us coming back. You never totally understand her motivations. She's almost too perfect, too pretty. What's going on behind there? And that's what she's able to bring. Either she's in control of it, she's either proactive, or she's a little bit more submissive in other kind of approaches. But regardless, Nicole is a capital A movie star. She's got a great sort of list of movies, working with some of the best directors of all time. She's got a great resume in my books, and she's definitely a movie star. So let me know your thoughts on your favorite Nicole Kidman movies. Maybe it's a little bit of an underrated one that I haven't given a lot of love to yet. Please, I'd love to hear that stuff in the comments down below. But until next time, stay tuned.